Mr. Savage, are you eating a Slim Jim in my gymnasium?
Oh, yeah. That's just my style.
Style? Why don't you show me your wrestling style?
Macho boy.
All right.
Need a little excitement? Step into a Slim Jim. Hold. Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of day it may be that you are joining us. Thank you for stepping into the Café Noir. I am the Café Killer, and tonight, well, I'd like to bring you a tale of revenge in the most sweetest manner. You're in for a real treat tonight. So, without any hesitation, let's go.
From Television City in Hollywood.
The next course will be served in a moment.
The following program contains graphic language which may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
For more than 3 years, these waters have been safe and calm, but the sea makes no promises.
That's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close.
Now, just when they thought the waters were safe again, the legend continues. The all-new Jaws 2.
In the West End and at a cinema near you from Boxing Day.
I'm Freddy Krueger, your worst nightmare come alive. And now I'm on your telephone. Dial this number now and I'll tell you Freddy's favorite bedtime stories. Gruesome new tales of murder and mayhem. Frightful heartstoppers of pain and gore. So dial this number now if you dare. And prepare for a scare. Freddy Krueger has a special message just for you.
$2 for the first minute, 35 cents each additional minute.
They thought the nightmare was dead. And buried. They were wrong. Jason lives. Happy Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives. Rated R.
Starts Friday, August 1st at a theater near you.
And welcome back. Now, before we go to our story this evening, I thought I would start the process by making some good old-fashioned Jiffy corn muffin mix. Except we're not making muffins. We are going to make a full platter. Now, kind of like that last one we made, this one is pretty relatively the same thing. But, you see, I figured, why not show everything as we go tonight? As you can hear, the sounds of the city are loud and bright. Somebody fucked up again. Alright, I need scissors. And there they go. Always something. Now, we're going to start with a package of our Jiffy. We're going to throw it in here like that. Next, we're going to take a solitary egg. I took it out of solitary confinement just to crack the bitch open. And for you planet savers out there, everybody's got to save the earth. Well, here's a useful little hint for you guys when you're doing something at home in your kitchen. Just throw that egg and all your little extra garbage into that little bag. And then you take, ouch, your little box. And you shove that back in there, just like so. You got a ready-made garbage can right off the side of your work area, keeping the mess to a nil while containing the garbage into one bag. For people out there who don't give a fuck, well, hey, you know, can I tell you? It's just something I do because I don't like the extra mess. A clean kitchen is a happy kitchen. Except for when we have the kitchen filled with body parts. Then it's an even happier kitchen. At least for me. Now, we're going to take a third of a cup of milk. And again, no beaters. We are just going to take this, put it in, and if you don't have a whisk, don't worry about it. You can use a spoon. But the whisk will actually help you get this completely mixed in the right consistency. Don't worry about the extra clumps that are going to be in here, like so. If you look, those are part of the process that gives it that nice top. Something about like this. So we got that. Now, we're going to let that set to the side just for a minute. Meantime, let's rinse this out. I like milk. Don't let it waste. Why not? So now set that aside, because we're going to need that down the line for something else we're doing later. In the meantime, let's put this milk away. Now, the next step is we're going to take this pan and we're going to just give it a good solid spray with our cooking spray shit. Just like that. Get it nice and lathered in there. That way you don't got to worry about it sticking to your pan when you want to fucking pull the thing out. That was our problem last time. Got the thing in there, yeah, it looked good until I went to cut the shit out. And then I just got a jumbled, crumbly fucking mess. Luckily for me, I like crumbly messes. Just look at my life. Alright, so that's good to go. We're just going to take this. And we're just going to right into the bottom. No, in all seriousness, I gotta be honest with you guys. I talk a lot of shit, and yeah, just like everybody, I have a tendency to get on my weeping willow, and I gotta run off on my soapbox about how awful things are. But every once in a while, you come across a story that you just stop worrying about how awful your life is, because you start to realize that as bad as it is, there's always at least one person out there who's gone through more or had it worse. And that's just the rule of law. So, with that in mind, that is how I'd like to open tonight's story. This is called Hop Frog, or the 8-Chained Orangutans. Originally published in 1849, what I admire most about this story is how he takes that... Edgar Allan Poe, by the way, for those who don't know it. I like how he takes the cynicism and the realism of what our world used to look like, and he brings it into what, for his time, would have been a modern outside look as to how things were. Now, keep in mind, 1849... the times of king and queens and jesters and that hadn't totally disappeared yet. In fact, a lot of those rural countries that just barely have started to catch up to us today, they had that shit going into the 1980s for a lot of it. So, there's a lot of people, historians out there going to tell me I'm full of shit or I'm racist. The racist word. Say what you want. I know what I know. And where a lot of these historians just go by hearsay and bullshit that they found. Well, you see, I have an inside view as to a world previous to ours. How is that? Well, because I've always had an understanding for a good, clean, prosperous world. And it was not until 1963 that things started to fail and things started to go into a downward spiral that led us straight into the pits of hell. Speaking of the pits of hell, let's empty this out and check out what's going on with this kingdom.
Thanks a lot, Citibank. You had to make your Visa and MasterCard better than other banks. Just by using them, we earn bonuses called City Dollars. Now, they could have saved us up to 40% on a color TV or a stereo. But we used ours to get something strictly for Vincent's amusement.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Visa and MasterCard from Citibank. It's the bank that makes them better.
That I could hear the scratching of her fingernails on the casket lid.
Watch MGM HD's The Price of Fear movie marathon. A full day of films featuring Vincent Price, showcasing his range from The Picture of Evil to Pitch Perfect dark comedy.
We'll have many a good laugh about it.
Ending up with the World HD premiere of The Fall of the House of Usher.
You must leave this house now.
See it for the first time ever on television in 1080i high definition. All the films in the marathon are based on Gothic master Edgar Allan Poe's works and directed by Roger Corman.
Celebration of victory over death, of evil over good.
Go to mgmhd.com now for studio-only photography and scenes. The Price of Fear Halloween Movie Marathon continues tonight. Next up, it's Tales of Terror on MGM HD.
Hop Frog, Edgar Allan Poe, published in 1849. I never knew anyone so keenly alive to a joke as the king was. He seemed to live only for joking. To tell a good story of the joke kind and to tell it well was the surest road to his favor. Thus it happened that his 7 ministers were all noted for their accomplishments as jokers. They all took after the king, too, in being large, corpulent, oily men, as well as inimitable jokers. Whether people grow fat by joking, or whether there is something in fat itself which predisposes to a joke, I have never been quite able to determine. But certain it is that a lean joker is a rah-rah avis tari. About the refinements, or as he called them, the ghosts of wit. The king troubled himself very little. He had an especial admiration for breath in jest. He would often put up with length for the sake of it. Over niceties worried him. He would have preferred rebellious gargantua to the zadig of Volatar. And upon the whole, practical jokes suited his taste far better than verbal ones. At the date of my narrative, professing jesters had not altogether gone out of fashion. At court, several of the great continental powers still retained their fools, who wore motley with caps and bells, and who were expected to always be ready with sharp witticisms at a moment's notice, in consideration of the crumbs that fell from the royal table. Our king, as a matter of course, retained his fool. The fact is, he required something in the way of folly, if only to counterbalance the heavy wisdom of the 7 wise men who were his ministers, not to mention himself. His fool, or professional jester, was not only a fool, however, his value was trebled in the eyes of the king by the fact of his also being a dwarf and crippled. Dwarves were as common in court in those days as fools, and many monarchs would have found it difficult to get through their days. Days were rather
longer at court than elsewhere. Without both a jester to laugh with and a dwarf to laugh at, but as I have already observed, your jester, in 99 cases out of 100, are fat, round, and unwieldy. So that it was no small source of self-gratification that our king, that in Hopfrog, that was the fool's name, he possessed a triplicate treasure in one person. I believe the name Hopfrog was not that given to the dwarf by his sponsors at baptism, but it was conferred upon him by general consent over the 7 ministers on account of his inability to walk as other men do. In fact, Hopfrog could only get along by a sort of interjectual jaunt or jaunt, something between a leap and a wriggle, a movement that afforded illimitable amusement and, of course, consolation to the king. For, notwithstanding the protuberance of his stomach and the constitutional swelling of the head, the king, by his whole court, was accounted with capital figure. But although Hopfrog, through the distortion of his legs, could only move with great pain and difficulty along a road or floor, the prodigious muscular power which nature seemed to have bestowed upon his arms by way of compensation for deficiency in the lower limbs enabled him to perform many feats of wonder and dexterity where trees or ropes were in question, or anything else to climb. At such exercises, he certainly much more resembled a squirrel or a monkey than a frog. I am not able to say with precision from what country Hopfrog originally came. It was from a barbaceous region, however, that no person had heard of, a vast distance from the court of our king. Hopfrog and a young girl very less dwarfish than himself, although of exquisite proportions and marvelous dancer, had been forcibly carried off from their respective homes in adjoining provinces, and sent to our king as presents by one of his ever victorious generals. Under these circumstances, it is not to be wondered at that a close intimacy arose between the two little captives. Indeed, they soon became sworn friends. Hopfrog, who, although he made a great deal of sport, was by no means popular, had it not been in his power to render Tripetta many services, but she, on account of her grace and exquisite beauty, although a dwarf, was universally admired and petted. So she possessed much influence and never failed to use it whenever she could for the benefit of Hopfrog. On some grand state occasion, I forget what, the king determined to have a masquerade. And whether a masquerade or anything of that kind occurred at our court, then the talents of both Hopfrog and Tripetta were sure to be called into play. Hopfrog, in especial, was so inventive in the way of getting up pageants, suggesting novel characters, and arranging costume for masked balls, that nothing could be done, it seemed, without his assistance. "Come here, Hopfrog," he said as the jester and his friend entered the room. "Swallow this bumper of health to your absent friends." "Here," Hopfrog sighed, "and then let us have the benefit of your invention. We want characters. Characters, man! Something novel! Out of the way!" We are wearied with the everlasting sameness. Come, drink. The wine will brighten your wits. Hop Frog endeavored as usual to get up a jest in reply to these advances from the king, but the effort was too much. It happened to be the poor dwarf's birthday, and the command to be drunk to his absent friends forced the tears to his eyes. Many large, bitter drops fell into the goblet as he took it humbly from the hand of the tyrant. Ha 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 ha! Roared the laughter of the king, as the dwarf reluctantly drank from the beaker. See what a glass of good wine can do? Why, your eyes are shining already. Poor fellow. His large eyes gleamed rather than shone, for the effort of wine on his excitable brain was not more powerful than instantaneous. He placed the goblet nervously on the table and looked upon the round of the company with half-insane stare. They all seemed highly amused at the success of the king's joke. And now to business, said the Prime Minister, a very fat man. Yes, said the king. Come, Hop Frog, let us your assistance. Characters, my fine fellow. We stand in need of characters. All of us. Ha 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 ha. And as this was seriously meant for a joke, his laugh chorused by the seven.
The next course will be served in a moment.
The mystery continues. Psycho 2. Rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
There was once a creature that lived to kill. For one endless summer, it terrorized these waters. And then, it was gone. And yet, in all the vast and unknown depths of the ocean, how could there have been only one?
Mike is out there!
The all-new Jaws 2.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. The all-new 3D. Unbelievably clear. Incredibly realistic. Terrifyingly sharp. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. It has to be experienced to be believed. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. Rated R.
Friday the 13th, Part 3, now showing at selected theaters and drive-ins.
I'm Freddy Krueger, your worst nightmare come alive, and now I'm on your telephone. Dial this number now and I'll tell you Freddy's favorite bedtime stories. Gruesome new tales of murder and mayhem, frightful heartstoppers of pain and gore. So dial this number now if you dare, and prepare for a scare. Freddy Krueger has a special message just for you.
$2 for the first minute, 35 cents each additional minute.
Ghostbusters.
The wait is over.
Happy New Year.
And the fun's about to begin.
Are we all going mad?
The Ghostbusters are back.
It's slime time.
Ghostbusters 2.
You know, the Ghostbusters may not be back, but we are. And we are back with something I think you guys may just enjoy. Here we have just your everyday, normal, average set of ribs. You guys a good look at these. we're going to take these and I'm going to show you my red meat fry seasoning. This is what I do with my red meat. Everybody's seen what I do with my chicken and poultry stuff. You guys saw what I do with fish, basically the same thing as chicken. This is the red meat. But first, cleanliness, so let me put this cigarette out. You know, I gotta be honest, speaking of cigarettes, when I want a cigarette, I like a superior cigarette. And when I want something superior, well, I smoke a Winston. It's just a better cigarette. And on the times when I want to roll, well, I gotta tell you, I roll with the best. I roll with the roll. And no, I am not being a paid promotional or whatever, but damn it, you guys gotta know that these are the few products out there that I still support wholeheartedly and love. Let me tell you, with everything going on in the world, these people don't like me, so why should I support somebody I don't like? Keep your politics out of my fucking dinner. That's my comment. Now, again, start with our flour. You guys remember I said we were going to need that cup later. Well, this is going to measure out. We're going to take one of those to start. It's just a 1/3 cup. And you know, I thought today was a good day to just add a little bit of soul to the meal. So we're going to take a soul food mix. And we're going to put that right across the top of there. I love my soul food. In fact, this is part of my secret ingredient as I make my hamburgers. Now we're going to take some pepper. Just regular black pepper. Oh wait, I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm not allowed anymore. Just regular table pepper. Is that one acceptable? I don't know, they change shit so often I never know what's what. I'm just going to add that right to the top. Now, we're going to take some onion powder. We're going to go right on top of that. Just like so. And see if I can tilt the bowl here so you guys can get a better look. You want that, like, snowy, after dry fucking look to it. I don't know, at least that's what it looks like to me. It looks like that fucking slush after people have been driving on the road when a good snowfall hits. Now I'm going to take a little bit of chili powder. I'm going to put that in right on top. Same, nice little layer. Just like so. Don't want too much. And then we're going to take this one, which I've actually been doctoring up since the last time I showed you. So it's not the same mix anymore. And with this one, ouch, ouch, ouch. Ouch. We are just going to take a tablespoon of that and right in on top. Like that. Bada bing, bada boom. Now, we're going to repeat that process for a second time. We've got our egg mixed, and we happen to have an extra big pot for tonight. So we're going to take and fill this up with some oil and get this oil heated up. Now, before we go back, though, I wanted to point out, you know, this story, it came out in a Boston-based newspaper, you know, the flag of our union. Very good newspaper. In fact, if you can still get a hold of some of the articles, it's something that's very intriguing to read about local shit going on in Boston back then that you normally wouldn't get to hear about. the interesting thing about this story, this is actually one of the final stories released by Edgar Allan Poe before his death. So, when he died in 1849, this literally went down as everybody wanted to collect it. Anybody that liked or was reading what he was putting out in local papers and magazines and such, this is one everybody was ramping up to go grab up and find. And it became well known for the lost story because it got to a point there between 1849 and probably around 1890. People were just picking it up at every chance. You couldn't fucking find a copy. And then with things being with the publishers having their deal. So, with that in mind, this also adds an element of real heartfelt persecution. You know, in a way, I think it was Edgar Allan Poe coming to terms with some of his own demons, knowing that something wasn't right. You get a sixth sense sometimes about things like that. Like, you know when you're going to die. You don't know how or whatever. You don't know specifics, but you know. You just, like, know. Anyway, speaking of knowing that we're going to die, we are going to die eventually, but I would like to make sure that we can watch the rest of this and cook this before it happens. So, as I keep walking on my lower lip, why don't you guys go ahead and take a look at Hop Frog.
This one is...
Real quick, before we go, I was just informed that those are pork ribs. If I'd have known they were pork ribs, I wouldn't have gone to all the trouble. I would have just mixed up a batch of shit and let you guys see what we got going. So, these are going to be the pork ribs with our red meat mix. Might even add a little touch of flavor there. Alright, here we go. Hop Frog also laughed, although feebly and somewhat vacantly. "Come now," said the king impatiently. "Have you nothing to suggest?" "I am endeavoring to think of something novel," replied the dwarf abstractedly, for he was quite bewildered by the wine. "Endeavoring?" cried the tyrant fiercely. "What do you mean by that?" "Ah, I perceive you are sulky and want more wine. Here, drink this!" And he poured out another goblet full and offered it to the cripple, who merely gazed at it, gasping for breath. "Drink, I say!" shouted the monster, "or by the fiends!" The dwarf hesitated. The king grew purple with rage. The courtiers smirked. Trippetta, pale as a corpse, advanced on the monarch's seat, and falling on her knees before him, implored him to spare her friend. The tyrant regarded her for some moments, in evident wonder at her audacity. He seemed quite at a loss for what to even say, how most becomingly to express his indiscretion. At last, without uttering a syllable, he pushed her violently from him and threw the contents of the brimming goblet in her face. Poor girl got up as best she could, and not daring to even sigh, resumed her position on the floor of the table. There was a dead silence for about a half a minute, during which the falling of a leaf or feather might have been heard. It was interrupted by a low but harsh, protracting, gnawing sound, which seemed to come at once from every corner of the What are you making that noise for? Demanded the king, turning furiously to the dwarf. The latter seemed to have recovered in great measure from the intoxication, and looking fixedly but quietly into the tyrant's face, merely ejaculated, how could it have been me? The sound appeared to come from without, observed one of conjurers. I fancy it was the parrot at the window, wetting his bill upon the cage wires. True, replied the monarch, as if much relieved by the suggestion, but on the honor of a knight. I could have sworn it was the gritting of the vagabond's teeth. Hereupon the dwarf laughed. The king, too, confirmed a joker to abstract of anyone's laughing, and displayed a set of large, powerful, and very repulsive teeth. Moreover, he avowed his perfect willingness to swallow as much wine as desired. The monarch was pacified, and having drained another bumper with no very perceptible ill effect, Hop Frog entered at once, with one sprint, into his plans for the masquerade. I cannot tell you what the occasion of idea observed here. Very tranquility, and as if had never tasted wine in his life. But just after your majesty had struck the girl and thrown the wine in her face, just after your majesty had done this, and while the parrot was making that odd noise outside the window, there came into my mind a capital diversion. One of my own country's frolics, often enacted among us at our masquerades, but here it will be new altogether. Unfortunately, however, it requires the company of 8 persons, and, well, here we are, cried the king, laughing at his acute discovery of the coincidence. 8 to a very fraction. I and my 7 ministers. Come, what is this diversion? We call it, replied the cripple, the 8 chained orangutans. And it really is excellent sport, if well enacted. We will enact it, remarked the king, drawing himself up and lowering his eyelids. The beauty of the game, countered Hop Frog, lies in the fright it occasions among the women. Capital, roared the chorus of the monarch and his ministry. I will equip you as orangutans, proceeded the dwarf. Leave all of that to me. The resemblance shall be so striking that the company of masqueraders will take you for real beasts, and of course, they will be as much terrified as astonished. Oh, this is exquisite, exclaimed the king. Hop Frog, I will make you a man of you yet. The chains are for the purpose of increasing confusion by their jangling. You are supposed to have escaped en masse from your keepers. Your majesty cannot conceive of effect produced at a masquerade by 8 chained orangutans, imagined to be real ones by most of the company, and rushing in with savage cries among the crowd to delicately and gorgeously habitated men and women. The contrast is inimitable. It must be, said the king, and the council arose hurriedly. as if it was growing late, to put in execution the scheme of Hopfrog. His mode of equipping the party as orangutans was very simple, but effective enough for his purposes. The animals in question had, at the epoch of my story, been very rarely seen in any part of the civilized world, and as the imitations made by the dwarf were sufficiently beast-like and more than sufficiently hideous, their truthfulness to nature was thus thought to be secured. The king and his ministers were first encased in tight-fitting stocking-necked shirts and drawers. They were then saturated with tar. At this stage of the process, some one of the party suggested feathers, but the suggestion was at once overruled by the dwarf, who soon convinced the eight by ocular demonstration that the hair of such a brute as the orangutan was much more efficiently represented by flax. A thick coating of the latter was accordingly plastered upon the coat of tar. A long chain was now procured. First it was passed about the waist of the king and tied, then about another of the party, who also tied, then about all successfully in the same manner. When this chaining arrangement was complete and the party stood as far apart from each other as possible, they formed a circle, and then to make all things appear natural, Hopfrog passed the residue of the chain in two diameters at right angles across the circle, after the fashion adapted at the present day by those who captured chimpanzees or other large apes in Borneo. The grand saloon in which the masquerade was to take place was a circular room, very lofty, and receiving the light of the sun only through a single window pane at top. At night, the season for which the apartment was especially designed, it was illuminated principally by a large chandelier, depending by a chain
They sent him on a covert mission. He found an ally worthy of his respect.
What do you want?
Survive. And an enemy worthy of his fury. I'm coming to get you. Stallone is back as Rambo.
You take me with you?
First Blood, Part 2, rated R. Starts Wednesday, May 22nd at a theater near you.
Archie calls the shots.
I wouldn't have believed that Stretch was a Jew. I mean, he wasn't a doctor or a lawyer in the dress business, nothing like that.
I've chosen the Will You Tell Overture, which I shall play with my 10 tiny little fingers on my prize-winning face.
I don't know what I'm doing here, talking to a man who in the last election didn't like Ford,
That's right.
didn't like Carter,
Right.
so he wrote in Richard Nixon.
All in the Family, weekdays.
For God's sakes, the neighbors will think you're a wild woman.
On Friday, August 13th, an all-new three-dimensional process will put you in the picture, whether you want to be there or not. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. Join Jason in the woods on his day, if you dare. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D, rated R.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 opens Friday the 13th at selected theaters and drive-ins.
Scream if you can.
He's doing it again.
Sleep if you dare. Freddy is back with a brand new nightmare. On a rush. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 3, Dream Warriors, rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
And welcome back. You know, I think think I know what was missing from last week and this week. We didn't have our music playing in the backdrop. You know, the music, that's half the fucking show right there, man. You gotta get that nice jiving chill. As a matter of fact, speaking of chilling, our oil's definitely hot enough. So I was thinking, once we get a couple of these breaded and deep frying, why don't we step back and take a smoke break? In fact, I'm going to show you guys how to roll with a roll the right way. Yeah, okay, we can do this without making a mess. I hope. There we go. So now this is one you actually got to take the time and pat your seasoning and your breading into your meat. Because you want it to stick. You want it to really grab on and hold on to that meat when it goes into the fryer. Once it hits that oil, it's all over. Alright. There we go. Oh, wait. Nope, I missed some. You missed a spot. There we go. Oh, yes. Listen to that sizzle. So now, with this, the best thing to do is get a good full coat. Make sure that it's completely smothered in its egg. You want that egg juice just dripping like that. Now, flip it one more time. I think we need some on the side here. Now we're going to drop this right down in, and we're going to pat it in. You know, speaking of patting in, one thing I wanted to take note of, did you guys notice when we were witnessing the novel idea from Hop Frog of how to dress the king and his 7 monarchs? How the thought of feathers came to one that it would be funnier, and Hop Frog stood his ground and even showed them that the fox would work better instead of the feathers, making them look more beast-like. He had this in mind for a long time, and I think Hop Frog was just waiting for the right minute. And the minute that king smacked that poor girl, it was too much. And you know what? I can't really say that I blame poor Hop Frog. I would have snapped out too. Especially being somebody you care about, and on your birthday, no less. I mean, think about it. It's your birthday. You're already playing slave and fool to some king who had you stolen from your land as a prize, only to turn around and on your birthday, nobody cares, nobody knows, you gotta still play the fool. You don't like drinking, but yet here's the king going, no, here, have this. You take this and drink to your fellows who are missing. And then they laugh at him when he's crying. Like, nah. And then smack the poor chick? Fuck you. Ooh. And that gets us to a next part, and I don't want to spoil it any further. I think we really need to get to the conclusion of Hop Frog or the 8 chained orangutans. You're watching the Café Noir, and I am the Café Killer. Oh man, these things look fucking awesome. From the center of the skylight and lowered or elevated by means of counterbalance, as usual, but order not to look unsightly. The ladder passed outside the cupola and over the roof. The arrangements of the room had been left to Propetta's superintendence, but in some particulars, it seems she had been guided by the calmer judgment of her friend, the dwarf. At his suggestion, it was that on this occasion, the chandelier was removed. Its waxen drippings, which in weather so warm it would be quite impossible to prevent, would have been seriously detrimental to the rich dresses and the guests, who, on account of the crowded state of the saloon, could not all be expected to keep out of the entire center, that is to say, from under the chandelier. Additional scones were set in various parts of the hall, out of the way, and a flambeau amid the 8 orangutans, taking Hopfrog's advice, waited patiently until midnight, when the room was thoroughly filled with masqueraders. Before making their appearance, no sooner had the clocks ceased striking, however, than they rushed, or rather rolled in all together, for the implements of the chains caused most of the party to fall, and all to stumble as they entered. The excitement among the masqueraders was prodigious, and filled the heart of the king with glee, as he had been anticipated. There were not a few of the guests who supposed the ferocious-looking creatures to be beasts of some kind, in reality, if not precisely, orangutans. Many of the women swooned with fright, and had not been the king taken the precaution to exclude all weapons from the saloon, his party might soon have been expedited their frolic in the blood. As it was, a general rush was made to the doors, but the king had ordered them to be locked immediately upon his entrance, and at the dwarf's suggestion, the keys had been disposed with him. While the tumult was at its height, and each masquerader attentive only to his own safety, for, in fact, there was much real danger in the presence of the excited crowd. The chain by which the chandelier ordinarily hung, which had been drawn up on its removal, might have been seen very gradually to descend until its hook extremity came within feet of the floor. Soon after this, the king and his 7 friends, having reeled about the hall all directions, found themselves at length in the center, of course, in immediate contrast with the chain. While they were thus situated, the dwarf, who had followed noiselessly at the heels of the inciting them to keep up the commotion, took hold of their own chain, and at the intersection of the 2 portions which crossed the circle diametrically and at right all angles, here, with the rapidity of thought, he inserted the hook from which the chandelier had wont be depend, and in an instant, by some unseen agency, the chandelier chain was drawn up so far upward as to take the hook out of reach, and as inevitable consequence, to drag the orangutans together in close connection and face to face. The masqueraders by this time had recovered in some measure from their alarm, and beginning to regard the whole matter as a well-conceived pleasantry, set up a loud shout of laughter at the predicament of the apes. "Leave them to me!" now screamed Hopfrog, his shrill voice making itself easily heard through the din. "Leave them to me! I fancy I know them! If I can only get a good look at them, I can tell you who they are!" Here, scrambling over the heads of the crowd, he managed to get at the wall, when seizing a flambeau from the caryatides, he returned as he went to the entire of the room, leaped with agility of a monkey upon the king's head, and then hence clambered a few feet above the chain, holding down the torch to examine the group of orangutans, and still screaming, "I shall soon find out who they are!" And now, while taking the whole assembly, the apes included, were convulsed with laughter, the jester suddenly uttered a shrill whistle, when the chain flew violently up for leaving them suspended in midair between the skylight and the floor. Hop Frog, clinging to the chain as it rose, still maintained his relative position in respect to the 8 maskers, and still, as if nothing were the matter, continued to thrust his torch down toward them, as though endeavoring to discover who they were. So thoroughly astonished was the whole company at the ascent that a dead silence of about a minute's duration ensued. It was broken by just a low, harsh grating. A sound that had been heard before attracted the attention of the king and his counselors when the former threw the wine in Trippetta's face. But on the present occasion, there could be no question to where the sound issued. It came from the fanged-like teeth of the dwarf, who ground and gnashed them as he foamed at the mouth and glared with an expression of maniacal rage into the upturned countenances of the king and his 7 companions. "Aha!" said the length of the influential jester. "Aha! I begin to see who these people are now. Here, pretending to be scrutinizing the king closely, he held the flambeau to the flaxen coat which enveloped him and which instantly burst into a sheet of vivid flame. In less than half a minute, the whole 8 orangutans were blazing fiercely amid the shrieks and the multitude who gazed from below, horror-stricken and without the power to render them the slightest assistance. At length, the flames, suddenly increasing in virulence, forced the jester to climb higher up the chain to be out of the reach. And as he made this movement, the crowd again sank for a brief instant into silence. The dwarf seized this opportunity at once and spoke. "I now see distinctly," he said, "what manner of people these maskers are. They are a great king and his 7 privy counselors. A king who does not scruple to strike a defenseless girl, and his 7 counselors who abet him in this outrage. As for myself, I am simply Hop Frog, the jester. And this is my last jest." A wing to the high combustity of both flax and tar to which it adhered, the dwarf had scarcely made an end of his brief speech before the work of vengeance was complete. The 8 corpses hung from the chains, swinging, blackened, hideous, an indistinguishable mass. The cripple hurled his torch at them, clambered leisurely to the ceiling, and disappeared into the skylight. It was supposed that Trippetta, stationed on the roof of the saloon, had been his accomplice for her friend in the fiery revenge, and that together they effected their escape to their own country, for neither was ever seen again.
America's first family.
Gloria, will you hurry it up? Your father's got me in another one of his stupid arguments. Of course, when you're arguing about something stupid with somebody who's also stupid, the argument is bound to be stupid. Right, stupid? And we got a show for you.
All in the family.
In the world of professional wrestling, one man is king.
Get ready, Australia. I'm heading your way, and I'm bringing the greatest wrestlers in the whole wide world.
Hulkamania, the ultimate wrestling spectacular. Tickets on sale 9 a.m. Thursday at Ticketek.
Let the battle begin.
Call him charming.
These yours?
Call him loving.
What? Who are you?
It's just Hulk Hogan.
Perfect timing.
Do you belong to some kind of an army? Or you just go around doing good like some kind of superhero?
Hulk Hogan, Christopher Lloyd, Suburban Commando.
How do you know which ones are the right ones?
You have to squeeze it a bit.
I found a good one.
Rated PG. Starts Friday, October 4th at a theater near you.
Hip! Ah, gotta have beef. Gotta have spice. Need a little excitement. Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
Gene Shalit of NBC TV says, let's say it right at the beginning. Rocky is one of the best movies of the year. 4 stars, says the New York Daily News. Rocky hits right on the button, says Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times. Rona Barrett of ABC TV calls Rocky a definite Oscar contender. Newsweek says Rocky is a knockout. Rocky, starring Sylvester Stallone, rated PG.
Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. The all-new process that puts you in the picture. Whether you want to be there or not. It will scare you. Count on it. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. Rated R.
Now playing in Sacramento. Check newspapers for theaters and showtime.
And that, my friends, was Hop Frog. Or was it really the 8 chained orangutans? I'll let you be the judge. But you know, if you guys will take a look right here, you'll notice that we've got everything set up. And among them, we've got our Slim Jims, already cracked open and ready to fry. You need a little excitement? Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah. I'm not biting them because we're cooking them. So, same process. We're going to dip them in the egg. We've got 3 that have been sitting here for a few minutes now during that last commercial. And what we're going to do is we're going to, same drop them in, and coat the bitches. Get them nice and deeply coated, ready to go. Make sure it's thick. You don't want it to fall off. And basically, something about like this is what you're looking to have when you drop it in the oil. Oh yeah, listen to that sizzle. Whoa! Yeah, baby! It's cooking now, man! It's cooking now! Alright, I was watching The Green Mile the other day. What do you want? Now, the rest of these, we're just going to drop them in. Big old jumbo. Let's get these suckers coated well. Unfortunately, you can't take that cheat when it comes to dropping them in if you want to get them thoroughly covered in your mix. You know, I think what I like most about the last story, more than how it's told, I love the way that the narrator gives you his perspective as an outsider as to the whole ordeal. And I do want to say, for those of you who are coming in late and you missed the story, I suggest this be the time you stop the episode and hit that rewind. Bring it all the way back. This is one of those where it gives you that proper perspective as if you were somebody right there in the courtroom watching the king and his 7 monarchs and seeing as how they treated Hop Frog and the way they treated the young girl and just how awful it was. The end of that story, you walk away with that feeling of it's empowering, you know, and it's a reminder to the rich and to the powerful and to the ones who think that they're in charge. You can control some things some of the time, But you can't control all things all of the time. And the ones that you kick around, the ones that you laugh at, the ones that you sit there and think you're better, well, let me just tell you, this story should serve as a warning that you are not better than anybody. Oh, yeah, look at that. And there is a deep-fried Slim Jim. Now, you guys know why they call them Slim Jims, don't you? Because the more you cut off Jim, the slimmer he gets. Alright, so we're going to take just a couple at a time, put them in here and get them coated and get them into our oil, just like so. And it really, because the meat's already cooked. This isn't like our ribs where you had to cook them and it took 20 minutes and fucking whatever. This is one, you just drop them in, cook that breading. Hot! 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 You know what? That's really fucking good. If you guys have an extra $8, well, maybe 10 if you count in seasoning. This is something you guys definitely dig. You should try them. You know what? The next football game, make these up. I promise you, your party will be the fucking brightest party on the block. Especially when you have the neon lights and some fucking disco balls. Alright. I'm going to take a couple more, get them in here. Now, in all realness though, jokes aside and commentary, I gotta tell you guys, one thing I've always resented is these rich assholes that think that they can just run the world and they control it all, and you know, they give this like, I'm just better than you. And it's like, motherfucker, you're a fucking human being. And if I fucking stab your dumb ass, you're gonna fucking bleed out the same way as if some fucking mugger on the street stabs me and fucking I bleed out. And guess what, motherfucker? Unless you're some little fucking Martian guy from fucking Venus, your motherfucking blood is red just like my motherfucking blood is red. I've had enough of this shit. Oh, he's a different color. They worship a different god. Oh my god, oh my god. You know what? Oh my god, suck my fucking dick. Enough with your fucking bullshit and your fucking red flagging and your fucking canceling and all your other fucking woke ass dumb fucking stupid shit. Fuck you. I'm gonna say it because nobody else fucking has the goddamn balls, or at least till recently, now that Donald Trump's starting to put a stop to it. You want to talk about racism? Let's talk about real racism. What do you call affirmative action? The most unconstitutional, racist fucking act in the fucking history of this country until wokeism appeared. You know what? I think this is a good time. We're going to cut to a break, go to a commercial. I'm going to finish frying these, and when we come back, we're going to fry up and saute some green peppers with just the right seasoning. So I hope you'll come back and stick around for that. But I gotta tell you guys, really, before we cut, I do gotta tell you guys, in all honesty, all serious, I get loud, I get obnoxious, and I say my piece. But you know, that's what this show is for. And for you guys watching, if you got a piece to speak, as long as you don't attack me or you don't attack my people who watch, dude, speak your piece. If you disagree, cool, disagree. Because the one thing about me is I love conversation and I love debate. The only reason I didn't go to debate school or all that bullshit and do that in school was because, quite frankly, I have a bad attitude and an even worse temper. I'm Sicilian and I'm fucking German and I'm Romanian. And I got the attitude and the fucking temper from all three. It's a hell of a combo to live your life with. This is the Café Noir, and we'll see you right here after this.
Hello, I'm Vincent Price. For many years now, mankind and his offspring have been searching for an alternative to peanut butter and jelly. After employing the latest methods in technology, the Peter Paul Candy Company has found the alternative to peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter with no jelly. Pure, creamy peanut butter dotted with Crispies, covered with pure milk chocolate, but no jelly. I'm sure you're as pleased as I am.
Welcome back to the Café Noir. Now, as we return to the show, I'd like to point your attention right down here. Now, you'll get a good look. You'll notice that we used several different seasonings, and I didn't quite show you what we used. Well, you know, we had two reasons for that. First of all, I didn't want to show you what kind of seasoning I used because I used a taco seasoning. One of the store-bought little packages you buy for the $1.50 or whatever. Throw it on your fucking ground beef and there's your American taco. But, you know, that leads me to part two. My other reason for using this was I do skim through YouTube now and again. And, of course, YouTube really is big on showing you all the meltdowns happening throughout TikTok. And one person in particular made it their goal to say that if you're white or if you voted for Donald Trump or if you're conservative, you're not allowed to eat tacos. You know what? Let me make it real clear. This is my answer to you. I will eat what I want, how I want, anytime I want. And unless you start paying my grocery bill, unless you start paying my electric bill, unless you start paying my rent, I don't care what country you're from, and it doesn't matter who I voted for. You see, unlike other countries, I have the right to vote any way I damn well choose. And anybody out there that says, if you voted this way, you're whatever, you know what? No. The fact is, you have the right to vote any way you want. And anybody that stands there and says you're whatever because you voted that way, well, to put it blunt, you're the fucking problem in this country. You're what's wrong with America. You're what's wrong with Americans. It's that simple. So, I'm going to take my taco-flavored peppers. I'm going to fucking drop them in this pan. And I'm going to cook them, bitches. I threw some oil down in there, and I got that oil nice and hot. Listen to it sizzle. Ah, it's music. Just music. You know, and the greatest thing about the peppers is nothing goes better with a set of good peppers that have been seasoned just the right way than when you got a good old-fashioned stick of meat. You know, we happen to have a stick of meat right here. Take a look at those. Now those, my friends, are what you call deep-fried Slim Jims. Let's get a look inside, huh? Meat and peppers. That's all you need. So these obviously are going to take a few minutes to cook. But I think that leaves us time for just one more little side thing. So, my friends, I would like you to take just a minute or so and listen to Edgar Allan Poe's Alone. This poem is probably one of the most beautiful pieces of work ever penned to a piece of paper. And I chose this one because myself, I find it very relevant in a world that chooses to exclude while secluding themselves. Well, this is Edgar Allan Poe's Alone. From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent of the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled, in the autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over a many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor, entertaining entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor, entertaining entrance at my chamber door. This is it, and nothing more." Patiently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came a-tapping at my chamber door. So faintly you came tapping, rapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard the tapping, something louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thread it is, and the mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and the mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obscene maid, not a minute stepped aside or stayed he. Not the least absence made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mane of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched above a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird begulging my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the continents of war. Though thy crest be shone and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim of ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore.
Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's plutonium shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly. Through its answer little meaning, little relevance bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast the sculpture bust above my chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, only friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters it only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till the song one burden bore. Then melt through the air grew denser, perfume from the unseen censer, swung by Sephram from whose fall tinkled onto the tuffled floor. Wretch, I cried, thy Goth hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe of forgotten lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undoubted, on the desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by the heaven that bends us above, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. But that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest night, plutonium shore. Leave no black pume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take that beat from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never filting, still is sitting upon the pallid bust just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all been seeming of the demons that is dreaming, and the lamplight, oh, hear him streaming through his shadows on the floor. And my soul from that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. And that was a very poor rendition of The Raven. Now, eventually we'll go back and make a way better cut and even make a couple videos for these poems. But I just wanted to share those two since we had a little time to kill. And you know, speaking of time to kill, I'd say
that our peppers are just about dead enough to eat. Oh yeah, get a good look. There you go. Now, if you guys will bear with us for just a second here, we're going to cut to one quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to dish this up, and we're going to say goodnight, as only the Café Noir knows how to say goodnight.
For more than 3 years, these waters have been safe and calm, but the sea makes no promises.
That's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close.
Now, just when they thought the waters were safe again, the legend continues. The all-new Jaws 2.
In the West End and at a cinema near you from Boxing Day.
I'm Freddy Krueger, your worst nightmare come alive. And now I'm on your telephone. Dial this number now and I'll tell you Freddy's favorite bedtime stories. Gruesome new tales of murder and mayhem. Frightful heart-stoppers of pain and gore. So dial this number now if you dare. And prepare for a scare. Freddy Krueger has a special message just for you.
$2 for the first minute, 35 cents each additional minute.
They thought the nightmare was dead and buried. They were wrong. Jason lives. Happy Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives, rated R.
Starts Friday, August 1st at a theater near you.
Tonight's broadcast is being interrupted due to a very sad detail in the news. Ladies and gentlemen, John Irwin, the voice of He-Man, died at 88 in his home, natural causes in Mello, California. And normally this would be the point where we do a thing and I'd show you some food and we'd hang out. Well, I decided that we were going to break from our norm, and rather than my tangents and rather than doing something goofy, I just want to take a minute to let everybody know that from here at the Café Noir, we'd like to send our condolences to the family and to the many, many, many fans of He-Man that will now be left without our hero.
Only 3 others share this
So, I guess the powers of Grayskull shall return
together
to
we
Grayskull
defend
once
Castle
and for all.
Grayskull from the evil forces of
Skeletor, you finally won, you bastard.